Well, let's keep going. Our next speaker is an old good friend of mine who has done many works together. She has been here as a postdoc once a long time ago, developed her own studies in Florianopolis, and will talk to us today about urban mobility and longevity. Thank you, Eleonora.
Thank you, Luis. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be back at this house where I first made my postdoctoral studies with Luis. Not so long, 12 years ago. In Epidoso study, and then when I came back to Florianopolis, I got funding to start the Epifloripa study, which is based, which is a grandson of the Epidoso study. So I am and Luis asked me to talk about urban mobility and healthy aging, which is the name of our print program. Hello? Which is the name of our print program from UFSC. I am based at the Department of Public Health of the Federal University of Santa Catarina. I work at the post-graduation program and in collective health in the main subject of epidemiology of aging. And our university is in Florianopolis, which is the capital of the state of Santa Catarina in South Brazil, with a population of 500,000, life expectancy 77 years, infant mortality rate 8 per 1,000 live births, and maternal mortality ratio of 20 per 100,000. In Brazil is 50. And a high percentage of people with high school, above 80%. Monthly per capita income is $482. And the development index is 0.85, which puts this city in the third position between more than 5,000 cities in Brazil. And we have 49 primary health care centers. So it is a very developed city compared with others from Brazil. This is a nice view of the city. I invite all of you to go there and to enjoy the beautiful beaches we have there. Is a really, really nice place. And the Federal University of Santa Catarina is ranked 5th best university in Brazil and 12th best university in Latin America. We have 5 campi, 107 campus programs, and 13 distance learning programs. 65 master's degrees, 21 professional masters, and 56 PhD programs. The program of internationalization, the CAPES print of Brazil, as Luis already told, is an initiative of CAPES from Brazil with the main objective of promoting the consolidation of the internationalization of the institutions in Brazil, encourage the formation of international research network to improve the quality of the academic production, and expand the actions to support internationalization of graduate programs. And also to promote the mobility of the faculty members, especially the PhD students. And they are doing this through the grants, which are used mainly, more than 90% of the grants are used for exchange of students and professors. like work missions abroad, international scholarships like PhD sandwiches, junior visiting professors, and also scholarships in Brazil like young talent, visiting professor, and postdoctoral. So in UFSC, the print program was divided in 5 main areas. One of them is human health. And this project I am talking about today, the health, aging, and urban mobility, is one of the 6 projects approved between 27 projects from UFSC included in the print. It received 1,400,000 reais, which is more or less $345,000 for a 4-year program between 2018 and 2022. It has 11 international researchers from these universities across the world, 2 in the United States, 1 in Australia, 3 in UK, Netherlands, and Canada also, and 11 Brazilian researchers from 3 areas, post-graduation programs from UFSC, which are the collective health, the physical education program, and the architecture and urbanism program. So I am talking now about some of the activities of this print, some of the projects, and some of the results of this program, okay? And then one of them is this livability index, city index from Florianópolis, which is being led by Adalberto Lopes, which is with us by a postdoctoral fellow from the print, and also Cassiano, which is a professor from the physical education. The urban livability means communities that are safe, attractive, socially cohesive, and inclusive, and environmentally sustainable. This is not a new initiative. This was initiated by the Healthy Cities initiative from the WHO 30 years ago. But recently we are developing many indicators and using computational tasks to improve this area. So affordable and diverse housing linked by convenient public transport, walking and cycling infrastructure to employment, education, public open spaces, local shops, health and community services, and leisure and cultural opportunities. This is all included. The principles of livability are to provide more transportation choices, to promote equitable, affordable housing, enhance economic competitiveness, support existing communities, coordinate and leverage policies and investments, both public and private. As an example, the most livable cities ranked from the combination of 30 indicators from 5 broad themes like stability, healthcare, culture, environment, education, and infrastructure are these. We have 3 in Australia, 3 in Canada, 2 in Europe, and 2 in Japan, and no cities in South America, and no cities in Africa. The 140 cities, they were ranked between 1 to 100. And in Brazil, we have, as an example, Brasilia was ranked in 107 position, Rio de Janeiro 118, and São Paulo 119 position. The goals of this sub-project is to develop a livability city index based on urban environment attributes related to active commuting and healthy aging from Florianópolis, Brazil. For this, we are mapping the city using a geographic information system, developing a livability index, and using the data from the EpiFloripa project to the validation process. So the EpiFloripa aging is a cohort study, a population-based cohort study with 3 waves from now. The first wave, it was in 2009-10, 1,702 participants. And then the second wave in 2013-14, we followed up more or less 1,200 from the original participants. And then the third wave, we just finished, and we could interview around 800 from the initial cohort. The walkability index was created using 3 indicators: the residential density, the street connection, and the land use mix. And it's already done, and this is the map by census tracts of the city, showing in more colored the best places by the walkability index, and in more lighter colors, the places less walkable from the city. And this other map is the network of buffers around the residences of the participants of the EpiFloripa study. So around each participant, each address of each participant, it was designed a circle with 800 meters, and this is the map of them. Okay, so this buffer was decided on because of the distance an older person can walk in more or less 10 to 15 minutes, is around 500 to 800 meters around the residence. And this result I am showing now is one of the papers which is in preparation. It's called Mixed Land Use and Walking for Transportation, Variations in Land Use Mix Measures and Relationships with Walking in Older Adults Living in South Brazil. The concept behind this is that different land uses in a neighborhood, defined as diversity, has been evidenced as a key ingredient in promoting walking, allowing physical activity in daily life, and promoting active aging. Diversity of land use means that around the address in the neighborhood, you have more than only residence. So you have commerce, shops, and leisure options, and many options, so people can go out of the house and very easily find everything around walking, and this improves a lot the walkability of people. But research on this topic indicates limitations in traditional measures, so there is a need to test better measures for this one. So this study compares different calculations of diversity and their associations with the walking behavior for transportation of older adults living in Florianópolis. 4 measures were calculated for the neighborhood of the participants. 2 traditional diversity measures, the Shannon and the Frank Index, and 2 alternative measures, the Simpson and the Hill. We are trying to relate the different measures of diversity with the frequency and duration of walking behavior of the Epifloripa participants. Okay, and this can be an advance by applying different methods of measurement to the same data set and testing which one is the best one. Here it's not very easy to see, but I'm telling you, now you can trust me. Here, these are data from our participants. We have regarding walking for transportation, which means people that went out walking for any places. Okay, less than 1/3 of people walk more than 150 minutes per week, which is the recommendation to be physically active. And more or less 1/3 walk less than 10 minutes a week. So it's very low, the rate of walking. And this is the map of the buffers around the addresses of the participants, the buffers of 800 meters around each residence, showing that they are the population of the studies are more in the city center, part of the mainland and the north, and the south of the island, which is mainly rural, has much lower population. And this is the main result. We have 4 walkability indexes, 4 indexes of diversity, and all of them, they show that the higher the index, the higher the proportion of people walking more than 150 minutes, showing that when we have more options around, people walk more because it's easier to find a pharmacy, a shop, go to the church, go to the cinema, go to the gym, and it improves a lot the behavior. Okay. So this is another result with our data from Epifloripa. The perception of traffic and crime safety increases the quality of life of older adults. And we investigate in this analysis the association of perceptions on traffic and crime safety and its impact in 2 dimensions of quality of life of the second wave of the Epifloripa study. The 2 dimensions are the control autonomy and the self-realization and pleasure. We used a scale of quality of life called CASP, which is the control, autonomy, self-realization, and pleasure instrument to measure quality of life of older adults. And what we found here? We found that the increase in 1 unit of the score of traffic and crime safety corresponds on averaging a gain of 1% and 3% in the control autonomy score. For the other dimension, which is self-realization, pleasure, we didn't find any association. So these results suggest that a better perception of safety modulates positively and prospectively the quality of life of the older adults, especially affecting a central dimension of this process, which is the control autonomy of the individuals. Another result, also using the analyzing the influence of the built environment in health, is this other paper. This is already published, the association between the built environment and the incidence of disability in basic and instrumental activities of daily living of the older adults. The aim of this study was to evaluate the association between subjective and objective characteristics of the built environment and the incidence of disability in the basic and the instrumental activities of daily living. We used data from the second wave of Floripa study, and the incidences were evaluated after 4 years by the difficulty or inability to perform 6 basic and 9 instrumental activities. The subjective built environment was evaluated by the adapted neighborhood environment walkability scale, the NEWS instrument, and some objective variables related to the streets, the sidewalks, and the land uses in the census tracts. And we used multi-level logistic regression analysis. And what we found in this study, we found that there were positive associations between the presence of hills and negative associations. So more hilly the places, more higher the incidence of disability, okay? And negative associations between safety for walking at night, a high proportion of commercial area, intermediate mixed land use, and the incidence of disability in basic activities. So we concluded that the built environment point to the need of improvements in urban infrastructure to promote functional independence for these older adults. And here we are showing some of the indicators that were used and the source, like paved streets, sidewalks, commerce, and land use. And they were mainly from the census of IBGE from 2010. Okay? And here we see the incidence of ADL and EADL dependence. Okay, so for the basic activities, the ADL, it was higher for female, for older age, and for people with the first income tercile. And for the EADL, there is not such differences like for the ADL. Okay. Another result is the contextual income and incidence of disability, also from the Floripa cohort study. So here, we evaluate the association between the contextual income and the incidence of disability in basic and instrumental activities of daily living. Also using data from the second wave of Floripa study. The incidence of disability use the same scale, okay? So 6 basic activities and 9 instrumental activities for daily living. And the contextual income was obtained from the mean income of each census tract from the 2010 census. Okay, so this means the income of the neighborhood, not the individual person income, but the income of the neighborhood where the person lives. And what we found that the incidence of disability in basic activities was 15%, and in instrumental activities was 13%. And there were significant associations between the income of the neighborhood and incidence of disability in basic activities of daily living. So having as reference the elderly living in the lower income tercile, those who lived in the intermediate and higher terciles of income, they had a 37% lower chance and a 21% lower chance of developing disability. This was seen for the basic activities, the ADLs, not for the EADLs, okay? So this study shows that the contextual income influences the development of disability in basic activities of daily living of the elderly and should be subject of actions to reduce socioeconomic inequalities and promote longevity with independence. This is another result of the study, the neighborhood environmental characteristics and the sedentary behavior in later life. Here, little is known by about the relationship between the environmental and the sedentary behavior using accelerometry in older adults. The aim of this study was to investigate the association between perceived neighborhood environmental characteristics and sedentary behavior using accelerometry for 423 older adults from Florianópolis. The time spent in sedentary behavior was measured with an accelerometer that they used for 7 days, and it was defined as less than 100 counts per minute. And the neighborhood characteristics were measured by the A-News scale. So what we found here was that the men who reported access to shops, to services, to food shops, and to bus stop, they spent over 1 hour less in sedentary behavior. And women with greater access to clubs and gym and open spaces also had lower sedentary behavior. Critical challenges in Brazil are the fast urbanization, the auto-centric infrastructure, and growth in car ownership. In 1970, we had 25 cars per 1,000 population. In 2012, this increased for 200 cars per 1,000 population. Then in this other project, we saw the relationship between the urban mobility. This was a project funded by the ESRC and the FAPDF. Defining healthy urban mobility. For originally, we thought that it was walking and cycling, that was the healthy urban mobility, but through the research, we found that this needed to be reevaluated because health and well-being benefits may also be conferred through any kind of mobility. And sometimes people have not good options, so they feel better inside a car because we live in a motorized society. So, for example, this woman, she told us, for me, healthy mobility is to be inside my car with air conditioning and safely walking through the streets. So this was a mixed method using both quantitative and qualitative data, like a spatial analysis, a social survey, biographical interviews, a mobile method, and participatory methods. And then what people told us in the interviews was that what for them augments well-being, enhances well-being while walking and cycling. The proximity of facilities, the frequent and reliable public transportation, feeling of community, presence of green spaces and places well cared and maintained. And the factors which diminishes this well-being were the poor quality of sidewalks in Brazil and parked cars obstructing the sidewalks in all cities, the hillier topography, poor quality or non-existent bike lanes, and the danger posed by the road traffic and the crime in the streets. And I'm finishing now. The last result of this research is this paper. It's already published. The relationship between the active urban mobility with hearing loss and the perception of the environment. So the aim of this study was to estimate the association between hearing loss and active urban mobility, which means walking and cycling at least 10 minutes in the previous week. And this was done for 2,300 adults from Brasília, Florianópolis, and Porto Alegre. The outcome was active urban mobility, and the main exposure was the self-reported hearing loss. And the analysis was stratified by the perception of the environment, for places for walking and cycling, negative or positive. And then what we found was that the prevalence of self-reported hearing loss was 17% for adults, okay, and the active urban mobility was 55%. And adults with hearing loss that perceived the environment negatively for walking and cycling showed a 34% lower odds of active urban mobility. In conclusion, there was an association between hearing loss and active urban mobility in adults in these 3 capital cities, according to the negative perception of the environment. People with hearing loss that perceive the neighborhood negatively, they tend to circulate less by active means. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eleonora. I think we have perhaps one question.
I am OTR and I work with Civic Technology. And my question is, in the studies that you consider dependence and disabilities, how did you consider the use of mobility devices by older people in your studies? Did you get my question?
How we measured?
No. How, because you described assistive devices like walkers, canes, and wheelchairs used for mobility by this population.
Yes, we asked in this mobility study if the person used any kind of devices, okay? But the prevalence were very, very low, so we didn't do any analysis for this special subset of people. But this could be done, but the prevalence was very low. We asked, do you use any device, like a cane or a wheelchair, to see? And of course, people that used this kind of device, they had a much lower mobility. But the main problem was not the use of devices. The main problem is the lack of accessibility, especially in the neighborhoods, the poor neighborhoods that are in the hillier parts of the city, like the favelas. We found many older people that they don't use devices, but they have some kind of difficulty of mobility, like the speed walking lower, and they don't go out of their home. They are in a home prison. They don't go out never, because it's impossible. I climbed some of the places. It's very difficult to go out because the person cannot go. It's very complicated.
Thank you, Eleonora.
Yeah.